Okay, good afternoon, everyone, ministers, ambassadors, representatives of the media, and everyone who can join us both here in person and virtually. Welcome to the press conference.
Recording in progress.
Yeah, we're being recorded. Welcome to the press conference summarizing the visit to the South Caucasus by the foreign ministers of Austria, Lithuania, and Romania under the mandate of EU High Representative Vice President Josep Borrell. I'd like to start this press conference by handing the floor to EU Ambassador Karl Hartzell, who will say a few words. Ambassador.
Very briefly, just to say a warm welcome to our three foreign ministers today. We have had an absolutely fantastic day, very useful, with meetings with the Prime Minister here in Georgia, the Foreign Minister, and a visit up to the ABL. Today is the conclusion not of a Georgia trip, but of a regional trip that started yesterday in Azerbaijan and went through Armenia. And what we will be hearing today are the impressions and the assessments from the foreign ministers. Again, thank you so much for being here, and I'll give you the floor now.
Well, thank you so much, Ambassador. From the outset, I would like to express a well-deserved word of appreciation for our partners from Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia for their warm hospitality and the excellent organization of this tour through the South Caucasus, a region having strategic importance for the European Union. And also, I would like to add our gratitude to the EU delegations in Baku, Yerevan, and Tbilisi, together with our national diplomatic missions on the ground, for putting together in a very short time a very dense, consistent schedule and for making the necessary arrangements for our tour. This is the first joint visit to the Eastern neighborhood by a group of European foreign ministers, coordinated with and mandated by the High Representative Josep Borrell. And I believe it was a very successful endeavor, especially as the challenges faced by our Eastern partners are high on the EU agenda. And this tour allowed us to pass a message of European solidarity and engagement on behalf of the EU and the member states. At the same time, we conveyed the message of the EU commitment to prioritize the security, stability, and prosperity of all three Southern Caucasus countries we visited, and the determination for the European Union to be more and more actively involved in the process of settling the protracted conflicts in this region, which has a geostrategic importance for the EU as a whole. Now a few words on the regional challenges. I recall that on behalf of Romania, already last year in October, I promoted the idea, which was supported by 10 other EU ministers of foreign affairs, of having an in-depth discussion at the EU level on protracted conflicts, which affect many of the countries in the Eastern neighborhood and have been hindering these countries' development perspectives for decades. As everyone can see, these conflicts have an extremely negative impact on the regional security and stability. They hamper the socio-economic progress and generate difficulties for the people living in the affected areas. In this context, it is particularly important to mobilize the EU attention on these issues, to identify the best ways of using EU instruments and cooperation formats to support the affected countries. We had insightful discussions last month at the Gimnich meeting in Lisbon, when we have decided to strengthen our political support to the Eastern partners. And this tour is, in fact, the first concrete follow-up to the discussion we had in Lisbon. We encouraged our partners in South Caucasus countries to make best use of the instruments provided by the Eastern Partnership Framework in order to strengthen regional cooperation to the benefit of peace and prosperity, and also ultimately to the benefit of the people. So in all three countries we have expressed support for the possible creation of a regional format, including all three of them with EU facilitation and support. In the timely discussion with our interlocutors in all three capitals, I have reaffirmed the view on the importance of their active involvement in the perspectives of the upcoming Eastern Partnership Summit. In view of this summit, it is essential to endorse a common ambitious vision on the Eastern Partnership for the coming years. While maintaining the inclusiveness of the partnership, we should be ready to reward the efforts of our most ambitious and committed partners, such as Georgia. but also Ukraine and Republic of Moldova. This is why we advocate for a flexible Eastern Partnership with a fine balance between inclusivity and differentiation. From Romania's perspective, as I proposed at European level, I will promote the need to develop a security dimension within the Eastern Partnership. We had in all three capitals substantial and very productive talks with our high-level interlocutors. In Azerbaijan, we met the President and the Foreign Minister. In Armenia, the acting Prime Minister and President. And here in Tbilisi, the Prime Minister and our colleague, the Foreign Minister, David Zalkaliani. We have also paid a visit to the administrative boundary line, where we were briefed by the EUMM staff on the situation on the ground. And in this context, I would like to reiterate our strong support for the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Georgia, and to reassure that Romania will continue to contribute with personnel to the EU monitoring mission. We already have 23 monitors on the ground. In Azerbaijan, we have expressed the fact that we consider that this country has a key role in the stability and prosperity of the South Caucasus, and expressed the hope that the new EU-Azerbaijan agreement currently under negotiation would be concluded swiftly, and thus providing an updated, modern framework to further guide our cooperation. And we have agreed with President Aliyev to resume swiftly the negotiation process, and we hope that this agreement will be concluded by the end of this year. In Armenia, I have congratulated Prime Minister Pashinyan for his party's victory in the last Sunday's parliamentary elections, and commended the good organization and the democratic character of the elections, as highlighted by OSCE, ODIHR, and other international observation missions. I highlighted my belief that further modernization and democratization of the country through a continuation of the reform process already initiated by the previous government should become the new strategic objective for Armenia, capable of uniting the efforts of all political forces to the benefit of the Armenian people. In both countries, Azerbaijan and Armenia, we had in-depth talks on the current situation and on the perspectives of moving forward. Following the last year's military confrontation, we called for a constructive spirit and for rebuilding trust, because confidence-building measures such as those related to the release of all detainees and the handing over of all maps of mined areas remain a priority, and the EU is ready to continue to help and support such evolutions. So we underlined the EU readiness to provide support upon request on all matters that might lead to a negotiated, sustainable and lasting settlement of all pending issues. I have underlined the need for reconciliation between the two societies, which is a process which will take probably some time and a lot of efforts, but there is no other option. And we have also discussed about many other important components of the settlement. I will not go now into details about them. Now some words about our activity here in Tbilisi. I have congratulated Georgia on the progress in the implementation of the association agreement. We stand ready to further support the political association and economic integration of Georgia with the European Union. And I have also underlined that an inclusive political environment and further modernization and democratization are important for Georgia's European agenda. On this note, I welcome the decision of the opposition forces to accept their mandates in the new parliament as a first step towards normalization of the internal situation. At the same time, we consider that all political forces need to sign the April political agreement. And I also welcomed Georgia's approach towards peacefully engaging the population in the two Georgian regions affected by the protracted conflicts. Last but not least, I would like to reiterate Romania's strong support for the European and Euro-Atlantic aspirations of Georgia. To conclude, I would like to state again that this was a very successful diplomatic tour in the South Caucasus, and we will inform our EU colleagues and the High Representative Josep Borrell about the results during the next Foreign Affairs Council meeting in July, on the 12th of July. As you know, our joint delegation left together from Bucharest, and we are now returning together to the capital of Romania. This has shown that Romania is proactively engaged in the region, and that we have well-acknowledged contribution at European level regarding our eastern neighborhood and our partners. And I am glad that in this way we can come with a solid contribution to the realization of the European foreign policy. I am concluding by saying that for Romania, the fact that we managed to introduce this topic high on the agenda, the topic of protracted conflicts in our eastern neighborhood, represents a true diplomatic success because our country supports the stability and security of the states in the Eastern Partnership, and at the same time because the settlement of these conflicts represent for us a strategic priority objective. We will continue to advocate for closer ties with the EU and for more EU involvement in the region to the benefit of the future perspectives of all three countries, and especially to the benefit of the citizens who, I hope, were reassured these days about the EU support. Thank you so much, and I would like to ask my colleagues to...
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this trip by 3 EU member states to 3 important partners of the Eastern neighborhood, mandated by the High Representative Borrell, was a first. It was a first for us 3, it was a first for the European Union, and it was a first for the 3 countries we visited. But I think it was an extremely successful and good exercise, and we achieved what we came for. This was a trip in trust building. That was the first and main mission we came here for. The second point was that this trip is a clear signal that we remain as European Union engaged and committed to the region. We will not leave the region to other actors. And we are willing to build a positive agenda for the whole region. When it comes to Georgia, many things have been already said. It is clear that the European Union and we 3 stand clearly behind sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity, and they're simply not negotiable. One thing, and we visited in the morning the EUMM mission, the continuing borderization is something we have to be really worried about. This is simply unacceptable that constructions are made there which are not temporary. This is something which has been reinforced during the COVID-19 pandemic, and this is something where we have to see that the lives of people are directly affected. In this context, let me reiterate that the detentions of Georgian citizens are simply illegal, and these people have to be released immediately and unconditionally. But the borderization proves also that there's a necessity and importance to reach out, to engage across the administrative bordering lines. On the agreement of the 19th of April, yes, all forces should join the agreement, and it should be fully implemented. The motto should be, play by the rules, don't play with the rules. As far as Azerbaijan and Armenia are concerned, we had very intensive talks, as already said, with President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan. Our aim was to sound out what measures are possible to build confidence. And the trip reconfirmed what we knew beforehand, that trust is the most needed resource in the region, and it's the most scarce resource in the region. So our aim was to plant the first seeds of trust. We know that the wounds inflicted during the Nagorno-Karabakh war are still open. They haven't healed yet, but we need a healing process. And the good thing is the trip showed clearly that all sides realize that the healing process is indeed needed and that they need partners in order to embark in this process. And the European Union stands ready to help in every way possible. Let me say in this context too that we highly welcome the important role of Georgia in this context and of the Prime Minister himself, who was instrumental in making possible the release of the first detainees by Azerbaijan and the handing over of the first mind maps by Armenia. I think this trilateral cooperation is beneficial to all partners, and this is something we as European Union will strongly support in the future, and we stand ready to engage in this, if we might say, the 3+1 format. At the end, I would like to simply thank the EU delegations and the External Action Service in Brussels for the brilliant organization and for the briefs and for accompanying us. I believe that has been a really good EU endeavor and trip, and I'm happy to have been part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, indeed, a lot of already has been mentioned, but I would start with thanking Bogdan and Alexander for an excellent visit and great cooperation that we had during the last couple of days through our travels in 3 countries. So I would like to take a glance a little bit about the importance of the region. I would say that this is one of the most geopolitical regions, not only near EU, but I would say in the world. There are a lot of regional powers that are interested in asserting their influence in all 3 countries of the region. But interestingly enough, that even though all 3 countries are rather different in their attitudes to so many things, but nonetheless they share several things also. And one of the things is that all 3 countries share the need for stability and predictability of the region. And unfortunately, the powers that are involved or trying to be involved in the region very seldom provides stability for the countries that strive for it. Not to say that they are, in many cases, against the country's wish, for example, to be closer to EU or transatlantic alliance. Therefore, it is clear conviction that EU has to be present and has a very clear mission why it needs to do that. Because we clearly believe that EU is the power, is the geostrategic power that can actually provide stability, democracy, and the needed reforms that would help the countries like Georgia on their path to European or transatlantic institutions. So therefore, I think that this visit comes at a very good time, especially not only to provide, but also to listen. What and how can Europe get involved more? When we're talking about Armenia and Azerbaijan, I think that we stress that during our meetings, that first we have to help to build confidence that the discussions would start. And I'm really happy now that EU was already involved in the processes, together with leaders of Georgia, in the exchange of detainees that were detained in Azerbaijan, as well as maps of the minefields that were in Armenia. That is indeed a very important and strategic step, and I'm really hopeful that this can continue. Furthermore, I think that when there is enough confidence built up, there is a possibility to talk about European involvement that would strengthen the connectivity of the whole region. Be it gas supplies, be it electricity connectivity between the countries, or railways or roads. Europe has knowledge in this. Europe has know-how in this. We've done that before in other countries. So I think that would be the benefit of the whole region. Few words about Georgia. We had an excellent meetings, a couple of meetings today. Many things were mentioned, so I will very briefly just put some points that I see that as rather important. We've talked about the need of immediate release of Mr. Gaheladze. This is a very sore subject for the government of Georgia, and we really support their request that an illegally detained person should be immediately released from where he's held now. We also stressed that the agreements in which EU participated need to be fulfilled and honored in full. And also, as I mentioned before, we commended Georgia's involvement in the confidence-building measures between Armenia and Azerbaijan. I think that Georgia has a very special role to play in building more confidence and more stability in the region. It can really take upon the leadership in the region, and I'm really happy to see the first steps to this direction are taken. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, ministers. We will now move on to questions from journalists. We have compiled a list here, which I will go through. Just a kind reminder that questions should be in English. Please keep them as brief as you can so we can fit as many as possible. And please, one question per media outlet. I'd like to start then with a question from Rustavi 2 TV here locally. Please go ahead. The microphone is there. And sorry, and one more thing, please specify if your question is to all the ministers or to one minister in particular. Yes, thank you.
Hello, sir. TV channel Rustavi 2, Miriam Gorgodze. We know you are mostly focused on the region security issue, but I want to use this opportunity and ask you about European Union and Georgia relation. We all know you are here on behalf of Mr. Josep Borrell, and also European Union is a very close friend for Georgia. Now, currently, unfortunately, Georgia is under continuous Russian occupation. And what do you see, how do you see Georgia's perspective of Euro-Atlantic perspective, I mean, and specifically, what do you think, how realistic is Georgia's aspiration to become a member of European Union in 2024? Are we ready? What do you think? Thank you.
Just very briefly, because it's a question you can answer actually for minutes. We very much appreciate Georgia's ambition. That's a very good thing. This Euro-Atlantic ambition is something we fully support. We do have, for the time being, the Eastern Partnership platform, where we have a summit this autumn, which we want to make a success. Austria, as a neutral country, I cannot talk for NATO, but as far as the European Union is concerned, I think it's always free. Every country is free to apply. That's one thing where the treaties are very clear. We are currently embarked in an enlargement process in Southeastern Europe and Western Balkans, as you're probably aware, and I would say it's free to Georgia to apply, but what I wanted to underline is it's very good. This ambition is good. We will support it. And as you said at the beginning, that you are suffering from the Russian presence, I said very clearly, our trip here has the signal as well and the message, we don't leave the region alone, and we as European Union are not leaving it up to other actors. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I will be speaking in my capacity as the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Lithuania. Just a disclaimer. So, as you well know, that Lithuania has always supported Georgia's European and transatlantic ambition. We consider that any country that meets the criteria has to have door open in Europe. We had this option. The Copenhagen criteria was very clear to us. We did the reforms that were needed, and now we're a member. And we think that the same rule should apply to all who adhere to the rules and conditions. Being said that, there are important steps for Georgia as well, meaning that Georgia has to continue on its path with reforms. Even though you have many friends in Europe, those friends have also a checklist that we need to see that it's fulfilled. Therefore, please continue on that path, and that will help us help you in the future.
Thank you.
As I mentioned already during my introductory intervention, Romania is a very strong supporter of the European and Euro-Atlantic aspirations of Georgia. We stand by Georgia in all its efforts, including when necessary, as far as the technical support is concerned. Today, during our discussion with the Prime Minister, I have mentioned that we appreciate the progress which was done in the implementation of the EU-Georgia agreement, association agreement, and the DCFTA. And we hope that, as my colleagues already mentioned, we hope that the reform process will continue in all areas. For instance, we have expressed appreciation for the progress and success achieved in the electoral reform, and hope that the reform in the justice system will continue and be completed in accordance with the requirements of the EU and the Venice Commission. At the same time, as my colleague, the Foreign Minister of Lithuania, mentioned, it is important that this process continues, and we are ready to continue to support Georgia in this effort. Georgia is not alone. Georgia has his friends along with Georgia, and Georgia can count on its friends. But the most difficult task is on Georgia's own shoulders. At the same time, as far as the Euro-Atlantic integration is concerned, I would like to point out the fact that the recent NATO summit, which took place on the 14th of June, includes specific references on Georgia's Euro-Atlantic aspirations. And I would like to point out the fact that the summit increased through the decisions taken and included in the final communiqué the support for its Eastern partners, for the aspirants, for NATO integration. And if you take a good look and a close look at the text of the final communiqué, you will see there reiterated the decision taken during the Bucharest summit in 2008. So we very much appreciate within NATO the progress achieved by Georgia, and the road continues.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question will come from we'll stay with Georgia. It will come from the Georgian public broadcaster. Can you please come up with your question? Again, please keep it in English, brief, and specify if it's for all ministers or just one. Thank you.
Thank you, Levan Akhalaya, Georgian public broadcaster. My question is for all three ministers. So you spoke about this topic in your introduction, so I will ask you to be more specific about the role of Georgia. Do you see the role of Georgia as a regional peace platform? And keeping in mind the latest developments with captives release, Armenian captives release, and of course the fact that you sum up your visit in Tbilisi. And one additional question, if I may, a little question about protracted conflicts in Georgia. Does you have new initiatives about this? Are there any talks about new formats, especially about when we are talking about conflict in Georgia? Thank you.
Well, I will start briefly, and now we've decided that we will take each minister one question in order to have more questions. So very briefly, I think that indeed Georgia played a crucial role, because in my belief is that Georgia and Georgian people have a trust of other partners in the region. And that's very, very important when you're trying to negotiate anything, especially between the countries that have difficult time debating between themselves or trying to find a solution between themselves. And first success always breeds expectations. And I could say that the expectations are quite high, but they are manageable. That's a good thing. That means that we think that there is a good path forward. And I think that given time and given opportunities, Georgia can play a really crucial role in the region. Because now you have to admit that Georgia is a participant of Eastern Partnership. It's a participant of associated trio. And it's also a participant or non-formal participant of a non-formal group of trio in South Caucasus. So in general, it's a bridge. And I think that it's a unique opportunity that, given the help from EU and other partners, US, I think that a lot can be achieved, and I'm happy that we had this discussion today with the leaders, and that we see eye to eye on this. On the other hand, as to conflict resolutions, I would like to be more optimistic about this, but we have to understand that behind the conflicts in the region, in Eastern Partnership region, I think that a lot of times there's Russia's involvement. We sort of, everywhere we travel, we have this feeling that there's somebody else standing in the room. Hopefully there wasn't. But nonetheless, I mean, we have to engage, in the same formats that are present. We still have belief in the formats that are present either in Georgia, be it Ukraine, or be it in any other country, and find universally approved, internationally approved rules for negotiating the conflicts. And EU has played part in this and will continue to play part in this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next question will go to the Armenian public broadcaster, Mr. David Muradian, via Zoom. Let's see if we can get a question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Again, please specify if your question, well, it doesn't matter anymore. Yeah, okay. Please go ahead.
Whoever answers from the minister, that would be fine. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Azerbaijani armed forces made incursion into the sovereign territory of Armenia, which is not only against the efforts for the peace building in the region, but also increased the regional tensions. I would ask whoever can answer, how can you comment on Azerbaijan's destructive step and the proposal by Armenian government on the issue, and what messages did you deliver on this in Baku? Thank you very much.
Very briefly, as my Romanian colleague already said, we don't want to go into details of our discussions in Armenia and Azerbaijan, but you're absolutely right. The issues there we have to tackle, which all are under the umbrella of confidence building, of delimitation, of demarcation, of disentanglement, and this was a major part of our discussions, but please understand that first we want to debrief our colleagues and the High Representative and see where we could go from there before we spread it out in public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on then to the next question. The next question is from Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, the office in Armenia. I don't know if they had some technical issues in the Zoom. Are they available in the Zoom? If not, are you? You're here. Okay, so in that case, maybe we'll move the question to the Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty office in Tbilisi. Can you please come up and ask your question? Thank you.
Yeah. No? Yeah, thank you. What can Georgia hope for when 20% of its territory is occupied and the European Union only sanctions Russia for Ukraine and plans to restore high-level dialogues with Russia? Thank you.
Well, it's a very good question because indeed today we have discussed about all facets of the conflict here well, what is important is to have a comprehensive approach to this conflict. On one hand, we have to support the integrity of Georgia, and this is what we are doing, including through this visit, and including through the visit that we have paid today at the administrative boundary line. And at the same time, I think it's extremely important that we combine all possible instruments that we have on our table in order to achieve progress in this respect. For instance, we have discussed today, but again, I will not go into far more details. We have discussed today about how to make, for instance, Georgia proper more attractive for the separatist regions. At the same time, we know that the Georgian government has a certain approach towards engaging without, of course, course, recognizing the separatist so-called authorities. And I think there could be more ideas in order to develop this, including as far as the economic attractiveness of Georgia for the separatist regions. On the instrument of sanctions, of course, we can, of course, think about that. We have this instrument being applied, and we are progressively developing the way it is applied. I would, for instance, make a reference here to the global regime on human rights, which the European Union just adopted and started to implement at the beginning of this year. So we will take a close look at that, but again, we need to discuss first with our colleagues in Brussels and in the other capitals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question will be from Mr. Zumrud Pashkin from the Azerbaijan Press Agency. Mr. Pashkin is going to speak through Zoom. Please go ahead. Okay, I don't think that's working. Okay, maybe we'll skip ahead and then come back to Mr. Pushkin when the next question is done. The next question was submitted in writing, so I'm going to read it out. It comes from Mr. Ismail Fataliev from the Azerbaijan Journalist Network. His question is, when is it the right time to include civil society organizations from both the South Caucasus and the EU in confidence-building processes in what is now the former North Nagorno-Karabakh conflict?
Easy answer, yesterday.
Actually, we have discussed, and I have mentioned in my intervention, the fact that it is extremely important to promote all kinds of reconciliation instruments and methods. And reconciliation includes also civil society organizations. And I think it is extremely important that at the end of the road, the two societies be reconciled and start to, understand each other in a more comprehensive manner. At the end of the day, this conflict affects everybody. So it is extremely important that the final resolution and the comprehensive resolution of the conflict takes care of, especially the most affected ones, which are the people. So yes, the answer is yes, we need reconciliation and involvement of the civil society organizations.
Great, thank you very much. And at this point, we will move on to the last question. It's actually Miss Pashkin. I'm very sorry for calling it wrong. But can you ask your question? Does it work? Yeah, we don't hear you. Maybe you can type your question in the chat and I will read it out. Is that possible? Yeah, but it's not typed yet. It's coming. Okay. Okay, I think, is it working? Can you give us a thumbs up if you want to type the message? We can't really see anything. Can we move the chat box for a second? Technical crew? There it is, sorry. Okay, I see it, I'll read it. My question is, does the EU have concrete suggestions to the confidence-building measures between the nations?
Yes, we do, but as I said beforehand, this was something where we discussed extensively with the President and the Prime Minister. We will now get back to Brussels to brief our colleagues, and this trip was all about that. This trip is about showing that the European Union is engaged, will remain engaged, and if we can do something, if the European Union can deliver something, then it's confidence building. Then it's using the potential, reaching from civil society to economic actors to political actors. That's what we are good in as European Union. And trust me, this is exactly what our message was. And but we are aware that this is still a very sensitive issue, that the wounds inflicted during the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict are still open, that we have to start this healing process. So please understand that we are cautious with what we say publicly, because we are still in a situation where one word too much could, reach or cause a reaction by the other party, which would like to prevent.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I think we're almost out of time. There may be the option for one more quick question, or maybe not. Sorry, I just heard that we are out of time. Okay, very good. So thank you very much for everyone for joining us. Thank you, ministers, for your time. And this press conference is over. Thank you.